about that base. President Trump heading to Mississippi to help embattled Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. Will his 11th hour visit push her over the finish line? And Dems on offense. Democrats about to take control of powerful committees come January are vowing to investigate the Trump administration, but the investigations might not just stop there. Will his family also be under scrutiny? We'll take a look at that in just a moment, but we actually start with two breaking news stories on the Mueller investigation this hour. A short time ago, President Trump offered what appeared to be perhaps a pre-buttal to the eventual Mueller report. Also, last hour, a key figure in the special counsel's probe of WikiLeaks says Mueller has offered him a plea deal. Jerome Corsi is an ally of former Trump advisor Roger Stone. He says the plea deal is on one count of perjury. Here to wrap all of it up for us, NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker. Kristen, let's start with the president. What did he say?
Well, quick backdrop, Craig, for you before we get to the president's tweet. Remember, the president submitted answers to special counsel Robert Mueller last week. And so his legal team tells me they're expecting to hear back from Mueller perhaps by the end of this week or perhaps before the end of the year. Let me read you the president's tweet, given that backdrop. He says when Mueller does his final report, will he be covering all of his conflicts of interest? In a preamble, will he be recommending action on all of the crimes of many kinds from those on the other side, whatever happened to Podesta? And will he be putting in statements from hundreds of people closely involved with my campaign who never met, saw, or spoke to a Russian during this period? So many campaign workers, people inside from the beginning, asked me why they have not been called. They want to be. There was no collusion, and Mueller knows it. So the president reiterating that familiar phrase, there was no collusion. And to your point, Craig, clearly with the pre-buttal there, he's set to argue that special counsel Robert Mueller has various conflicts of interest. Mueller's team would push back on that characterization. But this does come as Roger Stone's associate, Jerome Corsi, says that he has been offered a plea deal that he's not going to take, Craig. And this is what he's telling our Anna Schechter. He says they want me to say I willfully lied. I did not intentionally lie to special counsel. I'm not going to agree that I lied. I did not. I will not lie to save my life. I'd rather sit in prison and rot for as long as these thugs want me to, adding they now say I willfully lied on an amended statement. I did not. At issue here is whether Corsi learned about those hacked emails, John Podesta's hacked emails, hacked by the Russian intelligence. Of course, John Podesta was Hillary Clinton's former campaign chair. Before the public, did he share that information, for example, with Roger Stone? Was that information shared with the campaign? That's what we believe Mueller's team has been zeroing in on. Both Corsi, Roger Stone deny that ever happened. Bottom line, Craig, to all of this, the Mueller investigation is entering a new phase. We knew it would after the midterms, and we do anticipate there will likely be more indictments, more plea deals on the horizon, and potentially that report that the president was tweeting about today. Craig.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.